All right. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the RePHIL studio. As always, let us refill to 99 because we have our next set of special guests to reveal and announce to all of you. So welcoming to the studio, very happy to have Snips join us today. A brief intro. Snips has many T10 plus titles, and in particular getting first place in the BuddyxBuddy event and T2 in the I Need You event or Kimi ga Nakucha event. And as well, as you could see, welcoming special guest Feathers as well, returning to the studio. As a reminder, getting first place in the I Need You event. So both of you, an honor to have you join the RePHIL studio today.
Thank you.
All right. So for those in the viewers maybe listening, it's going to be a little bit different. Snips doesn't have a microphone, so that's why we also have Feathers over here. Feathers will be sort of the voice of Snips in this case. But again, for those watching this video on YouTube, you'll be able to see like the story unfolding of what Snips wants to say on there. But in general, Feathers will be not only our special guest, but also a spokesperson as well. So, a little bit of Otsu in advance for you, Feathers.
Yeah, I guess an example of that would be to say that Snips says it's really nice to be here and thank you.
All right. Great. So hopefully I got the intro right, Snips. So if I have anything wrong, let me know. But while we're at it, I always ask our guests, like, how did they get into, Bang Dream? And that's the one thing I do want to ask you as well, Snips. Like, how did you get into Bang Dream, getting into the franchise? Like, where did that all start? And Feathers, we already know where you kind of started as well, right? We have your previous podcast. So again, for those who want to watch that, again, check the playlist. But let's start with Snips here. Where did it all start? Getting into Bang Dream.
While Snips is typing, I will mention that a title that you missed was that Snips does have first place in Hello, My Happy World from way back when. That was the first event we did together.
Okay.
So that was how we met. So I'll let Snips keep typing, but that's the most important title, I think, because that was how we got to know each other.
Wow.
And that's why we're still here playing even now, Bandori 3 and all that. So
wow, that's amazing. Honestly, that's one thing I definitely am curious. That was actually something I will ask eventually, kind of like the origin story of how you two got to know each other. Because obviously a lot of the tiering events you've done together, it all has to start somewhere, right? So it's good. It'll definitely be really interesting to see how that started, but. We'll await the response and let's see where everything started.
So Snips has started typing. He says, all right, so Bushiroad has owned my wallet even before Bandori. And yes, I love that event dearly for meeting Feathers. He's talking about Hello, My Happy World, and getting to solidify my friendships with most of my Hello Happy Worlds. So he's talking about our little friend group that we've kind of developed as we've tiered over the years. He says, so I played School Idol Festival, but I got into Bandori through a time I was an attorney for Vanguard. So that would be Card Fight Vanguard, I believe, which is a Bushiroad property trading card game, which he does play competitively.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But that's definitely a Bushi slave right there.
Yeah. So he says, I played it competitively, and I recall during a break between rounds seeing this booth set up for these girls, and yeah, so these girls would be, I would assume, the Bandori girls. And I'm not sure where you were playing, Snips, but was it at like Bushiroad Grand Festival by chance? That happened at the same time as Anime Expo? It might have been, yes. So that was when I got into Bandori as well, when it was I think that was 2016 or 2017. So this was before it was released. It was before it was launched. So yeah, so we were probably at the same event for two different reasons without knowing each other. So we both got into Bandori that way, actually, by seeing like the setup there. They had a few songs, I think, to play. So yeah, we kind of have accidentally the same origin story. So yeah, Snip says we might have been in events together, but never met up because of priorities. That definitely happened. We were both at Kara Expo, but Snips was of course busy playing the card game.
I see. I see. I see. So I'm guessing Snips, you kind of got in or learned about it like kind of when it first started, because 2017, right? 2018, that's kind of like when the game was first like released. So you seems like you're more of like a a boomer, like a veteran in the scene for sure. I know some people have been got into the game like right when it came out, but like other people, like some of our recent guests, they really like only got into the game like a year or 2 years ago. So yeah, it's pretty interesting to see the differences there.
Yeah, both of us are kind of in the same boat there, where we were into the concept of it before it was released.
Okay.
Yeah, he says, yeah, they were demoing it and it looked interesting. Yeah, I believe you could play a few different songs. One of them was Guren no Yumiya. I remember that because we played it there. But yeah, that was in like the very early, like they were still developing the English release, I think.
I see. Well, that's really cool. So that's really neat to see that kind of we're boomers. Yeah, I think all of us are.
Yeah, we are boomers, man. Yeah, we're Bandori boomers.
I started right when the game first came out as well. So Snips, in your case though, right? A curious case for you is that you ended up, getting into the game and franchise and ended up really, really liking Hello Happy World for the most part as like your favorite band. And I'm assuming that Hello Happy World's your favorite band, but when you first got into the franchise, like, was that like always the case? Were you always a big Hello Happy World fan right at the start, or was it like something that happened that made you realize that they were your favorite? And also, while you're at it, talk about a little bit more about your favorite character. Probably is someone from Hello Happy World, but tell me a little bit more about why who is your favorite character, and particularly why that's the case.
While Snips is typing, I'll just give a brief rundown for myself for comparison. I did not like Hello Happy World in the beginning, and I thought that I would like Roselia the best, and I thought Kokoro was ugly. Yeah, I think I mentioned in my last podcast.
Yeah. Not the McDonald's fries here.
Yeah, so that was me. I was clearly wrong. Anyway, Snip says, funnily enough, my girlfriend at the time was saying I was going to like Misaki the most, and it ended up true. So we both have the same favorite character. Misaki is our favorite, which is why we end up tiering a lot of the same events, I would say. And Snip says, Feathers, you mentioned this before in another convo or something, and I recall because I was also the same regarding Kokoro too. Yeah. He says, like, I couldn't stand her. Yeah, me too. I don't know what, like, looking back on it now, I'm just like, wow, you fool. Like, you absolute fool. Because, after all of this, like, I love her to pieces. But It's interesting that we had the same thoughts about her. But we both loved Misaki, and that was what made us both love Hello Happy World in turn.
Yeah. So it's really cool to see how, like, because of a particular character, you really start to see different perspectives of other characters. In particular, Kokoro for sure, especially if you like really like Misaki. And in the standpoint of Misaki, you think, wow, Hello Happy World, they're just a bunch of goofballs, but you really get to love them a lot. And they're very endearing.
Yeah, Snip says, it infuriated me how she seemed careless and the way she treated Misaki. But yeah, we definitely grew on her and just love her and everyone in the group. So yeah, I think that was a sentiment shared by a lot of people in the beginning when the characters were not as fleshed out. Definitely me as well. I was like, wow, she's so annoying.
Yeah.
But now it's like complete opposite, like protect my golden child,
Yeah.
And like obviously I'm a huge Misakoko shipper.
Yeah.
And Snips doesn't go there, but Snips is like Misaki has two hands. So, that was a big inside joke. But yeah, I think we both kind of went in the same direction with that.
Wow. And big shout outs to Snips' girlfriend. Like it literally has like the perfect eye. Be like, yep, right there. That is your character. And it's like, yep. That is true. So well, that's really cool that, like, again, it's really cool to see how people got into the franchise and series. It's always very different. It's always really unique to see, I guess, like the the origin stories. So take your time on this. This is like a a very like a different podcast setting. I know a lot of people out there were maybe possibly looking forward to like a Snips voice for real, but not quite yet. Not quite yet.
Phil can tell you to take your time, but I'm missing D&D for this. So you better read faster, Snips.
It's
I
like,
leave in the middle of my session. And I gave my character to someone else. Like, I gotta go do this Bandori podcast.
Oh my god. The dedication to do this.
All right, Snip says, what's crazy is that I remember checking a while ago too that the first event I technically tiered, which was T100 for Phantom Thief, the cap I had my bio as it's enough Misaki loves her. So yeah, I mean, I guess that was enough for Snips to tier that one.
And that, yeah. I don't know if Snips read my mind, but that was like basically like my next question. And like how did you first get into tiering, and like what was that about? And yeah, right there, right? You got into you started tiering the Phantom Thief event, which was literally like what was it the first or the second or third? Third, right?
The second.
Second event, yeah.
The first one was the Cherry Blossom one, and then Phantom Thief was after that.
Yeah. So you have a boomer title, like a T100 boomer title, which is really a very rare sight. So how was that overall, like tiering that event and like seeing that like, oh, like tiering seems like pretty cool. Like how did that like influence you to tier more later?
Yeah, so Snip says I used to tier T1/2 for School Idol Festival, but School Idol Festival tiers were based on they weren't based on like top 10 plus, but rather a range of where you wanted to end up. So yeah, I did some School Idol Festival tiering as well. Nothing too high because unlike Bandori, they didn't have like special titles or anything like that. So it was hard to have like the bragging rights. It was just like you did it for yourself. But yeah, tiering these two different games is similar but also very different. So yeah, kind of similar there.
Yeah. Okay. So like after tiering that, and again, Snips, you could finish what you said if you want to add anything to that. But you could think about this next question in the meantime. Like after tiering that T100 as well, like did you like have thoughts of like wanting to tier more after, and like did that eventually lead you to like find like more people to tier with and such? So I imagine like doing T100 like by yourself is probably doable, and like it wasn't probably too difficult.
Yeah, Snips has a good point, I guess. He says, well, this is boomer era, so there weren't really servers yet, as in tiering servers. So nowadays, I would imagine a lot of the folks listening and a lot of the players in the server here are used to just being able to say, hey, where's the server? Can you link me to the server for this event? But of course, back then there was no such thing as a tiering server. Like there were small groups and stuff like that, but not to the extent that there is now. So yeah, he says we literally played in PubCord, and yeah, he also did too at that time as well. So yeah, that was where we played together when I came in as well. We just played in PubCord in the voice chat there, and that was kind of because we didn't know anybody, I suppose. There just wasn't this culture around tiering servers yet.
Yeah.
So it really was like every man for himself sort of deal.
Yeah.
And of course, no Lisa bot. So,
wow. Yeah. Yep.
You gotta do all the math yourself.
That's it's hard to imagine like what tiering would be like back then with all the
Yeah.
resources we have right now. It's just so different. So
Yeah, Snip says, "Oh god, that'll be a story when we get to Hello My Happy World properly." In the conversation, yeah.
yeah. Well, it's pretty cool that like even like back in the day where Popcorn wasn't really like the official like server, right? It wasn't official back then.
No,
It
no,
was
it was
just a
just fan
fan
server.
server that was, kind of gained traction to be like the biggest community, and it all kind of worked out where I guess like, people came in and tiered together. It seemed like that's where you two first met in like maybe informally in Pubcord back then. So
Yeah, pretty much.
yeah, that's good. That's good. So Snips, when did you decide? Because obviously you did like a T100. Like, how did you decide that instead of just going for a top 100, you're like, maybe I want something a bit more. I want to like shave that zero off, maybe get a T10, or maybe right off the bat be like, oh, maybe I'll just try and get like a podium or even a T1. So when did those like plans first start, and how did that like transpire? And that could be Hello My Happy World. That might actually be like when you really first started to um, uh, really get into things of high tiering. So maybe you could take some time to share that.
I think I shared my details in my last podcast. So
Mm-hmm.
if anyone wants to hear my half of it, you can go listen to that one, the ancient podcast. It was
like
episode 3.
the ancient early origins of the podcast.
Yeah.
And did you talk about Hello My Happy World too much? I don't think
I
we discussed it too much.
I don't know. I feel like there wasn't that much to talk about for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I mentioned that I just played and didn't intend to podium
Mm-hmm.
or anything like that. So I just was like, I want to try doing top 10, and I did that. Like that's it. Like at the time, it had my favorite card from the game in the gacha, which is the Bad Bear, which I think it was Snips'
Yeah.
favorite at the time too. I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So we had the same brain when it comes to Hello Happy World. Anyway, Snips says, well, I wasn't planning on going hard until JP dropped with Hello My Happy World, and I realized no matter what, I really wanted to tier it, and not just tier, but go for first. So yeah, basically the same story as me, except I was not. I didn't have like a concept of what it would take to podium in a Bandori event yet.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wasn't sure if it'd be similar to School Idol Festival, because I played JP, so that one was like impossible, to tier. But yeah, Snips had higher aspirations than me for his first big
I'm guessing just based on the fact that, and he had previous history of getting T1 and T2 in SIF, right? That doesn't seem like out of the ordinary. But like, oh, well, if I got T1 or T2 in the previous game before, right? Like maybe I haven't got like a T10 or a podium before in this game. It's like, well, I could skip a few steps, right? I could get T1, no problem.
Yeah, so Snip says, I wish I can recall the dates for it, but because I spent the entire time / year leading up to it going like the "it's all connected" guy meme, so the guy in front of the board with like all the different dots connecting. But because I did so much random calculations and prepping, so Snips went in way more prepared than I did, it seems, because I did not know what I was doing at all. I didn't really know anyone who tiered, and all of my School Idol Festival tiering friends were like, yeah, you need someone to play your account for you while you're like at work and stuff. And like obviously that culture did not pass over into Ian Bandori. So that did not happen. But at the time it seemed to me that it would be impossible to do it without that, because that was the culture in JP Sif.
I see.
So Snips clarifying, he says, oh man, to clarify, tiers 1/2 in School Idol Festival was like not actual T1 / T2, but the full group. So T1 to 100, and then T100 to like below that. I can't remember what it is either. It's been so long since I played. But yeah, he says I wasn't crazy enough for the SIF grinds yet. So neither was I. I didn't do that either. But
okay.
So I guess Bandori was like our first real like wow, this is possible.
I
You know?
see. Okay. Well, that's really cool to see that even like, with your like, with your knowledge, you were able to prepare well in advance. Be like, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to tier for this event, and you were able to sort of prepare for that big T1 push. So, I think that kind of goes back together to like, how did you two kind of got together to tier together, right? Like, how did that all transpire, that overall experience of that first T1 snip? So like, how did you how was that experience overall? Like, what kind of people you tiered with, and overall like your experience on that, like for that first T1, how was that like? And if Feathers, in the meantime, like, maybe you could add a bit, right? Like, how did you started tiering with Snips, like
Oh
for that
yeah.
event?
So because it was in Pubcord,
Mm-hmm.
it was ever rotating rooms. People would come in and play 3 songs and leave constantly. So it was hard to find people who were playing long term. But if you intended to play long term, then naturally the other players who were also intending to play long term would stay in the room much longer than others.
Mm-hmm.
And so we hopped in voice chat. I can't remember who was in there first or how that exactly unfolded, but there was me and Snips, and yeah, we were all dying. Yes, I can't remember. I can't remember if Keimashi was there yet. And then there was, yeah, he says it was before VC was also used in servers. So like this was like, VC wasn't even used normally to tier in Pubcord. Like it just was not like a frequently utilized tool, but it was the
Mm-hmm.
easiest way to communicate. Even though Snips doesn't talk in voice chat, it's still much easier to coordinate. And so it was us, and then I had my friend Dexanth there, who was also tiering with us, who I think got fourth, and
Mm-hmm.
she was doing like all the math and taking screenshots of top 10 for us and putting it in an Excel sheet and trying to calculate who had spent CP and who hadn't. So we just kind of ended up all naturally like working together because we were all tiering high anyway, and so we were playing with each other the longest. Um, but
Wow.
yeah, I don't know. It's so different back
That's
then.
like, again, just the way like the techniques and all, it just sounds so different, right? You have like people playing, right? You're not really using VC, because I imagine back in the day, like Discord wasn't like that big just yet, because that was like, pre-pandemic, where not many people were really using Discord as often as we are today.
Yeah,
And like people are like manually taking screenshots, and there's people out there who've like found their roles. They're like, yep, I'm gonna be the spreadsheet person, and like
yeah.
calculating people. That's crazy, like, to think people would make those roles.
Yeah, so Snips expands a little bit. He says, so back before LisaBot era, we used to screen cap hourly the top 10, so once an hour, to keep track of our scores in EP. And yeah, Dexanth is the one who made a spreadsheet to help us out with that.
Mhm.
And I'll do a little plug here. Dexanth is my friend, and she is the con chair for Idlefest, which is
Oh.
our live convention that we're having down in Seattle. Bang Dream, Love Live, etc., etc. Lucia Hunter is a guest this coming year, so if you want to meet the man, the myth, the legend, you can come. But yeah, it all ties together. We were all there at the beginning,
I
It's
actually
so
did not know that. That's so
yeah,
cool.
that is true. And Snip says, yeah, oh yeah, Hello My Happy World was a challenge live, by the way, so the anxiety for everyone was like, yeah. It was awful because there was no way to track who was using CP. It was just, you had to guess or like try to keep track of how long someone had played and how much CP they would have. It was just, uh, I don't know. It was anxiety inducing, and I was still working at the time, so I would go to work filled with anxiety and like run home from my job. Like, yeah, Snip says it was based on we would calculate based on the hourly score, increase in gap, etc. Yes, I had class. I had Japanese class at the same time, so I had class and I had work, and I would come back and Snips would still be playing. Yeah, Kay had work and Dex had work, so we'd all go to work and come back and Snips is still there. Like, you know,
Wow. That's crazy, honestly. And like, just hearing about how like old school tiering was like, wow, it feels like almost like a privilege, just like how like the quality of life improved like drastically now.
Oh yeah, it is
So
so much better now. Like, not necessarily easier, it's just better.
yeah, yeah, just a lot of things just make things a lot more streamlined rather than what happened before. So yeah, but Snips, that's really cool to see like how you were able to get your first T1. I'm sure it was a very memorable experience. I'm sure that you don't want to, remember the lack of sleep you had in that event or the anxiety that it was induced by calculating challenge life points and such. But yeah, it was a really good, cool experience. I hopefully it was a cool, good experience to get a T1 and of course be able to meet people like Feathers and be able to continue building your tiering career.
All right, Snip says, well, I was already hit with emotional distress because going into Hello My Happy World, you needed the gotcha cards, and I didn't get them within the first 80k. Yes, I do remember that. 80k or something, and this was also before Sparks were a thing. So yeah, that's a good point. I do remember that. I had prepared by playing 2 accounts, and whichever account I pulled the event cards on first was the account I was going to keep, because I was so worried about it. And I do remember Snips really struggling to scout, because back then you needed like all the help that you could get. So it was very stressful because we would come back and we'd be like, "Oh, Snips, you scout again," and he'd be like, "Yeah." And nothing. I think that I can't remember what you were scouting for. Was it the Misaki? I don't remember.
Pre Spark Bandori is such a mistake.
Yeah, so he says, I had saved a ton of stars and more, and it hurt because I'd planned a certain amount for the cards and some for the tiering. So yeah, back then you couldn't really be like, all right, well, if I don't get it, here's how much I need to spark, because there was no spark. It was just you played until you got it or you didn't get it. Like,
yeah.
That was even more stress and anxiety on top of that.
Yeah, I've heard horror stories of boomers spending like 6-digit star counts not getting the card they need. It's ridiculous.
Oh yeah, I've been there, but I got them eventually, but
eventually.
It hurts.
Oh boy. It's
yeah. The Snips is typing again. Let's give him a chance. He says, yeah, I didn't consider myself a whale, and ironically, I still don't. Well, I guess that depends on, Snips has a point, I think, because, for some people, a whale is someone who spends $100 or buys the Black Friday packs. And, like, for me, it's someone who spends, like 5 digits, like $10,000 plus. And it's like, if you're smart about saving and you do like one event a year and you just buy all the packs, like the sale packs and stuff, are you really a whale? Or, are you just giving yourself a little treat like every few months? Like, instead of going to see a movie, you watch the movie at home and you buy like a birthday pack or something. Like, would you consider yourself to be a whale? Yeah, he says it's more on the mindset of financial means and ease, which for him dictates whale status. So, yeah, I think that kind of makes sense. Like, if you can turn around and easily drop like, $5,000 to get the card you want, which you don't have to do anymore, obviously. But like, if you can do that easily, then yes, whale status. On the other hand, if you're someone who you've saved $1,000 to get this card, just in case you need to spark it, but you saved over like a year or two, like, are you still like a whale, or have you just been saving smartly that whole time, I guess?
Yeah.
Like, there was an event Snips recently tiered, which I believe he used all cans from a previous event, so he didn't actually spend any stars. So it's like the illusion of being a whale.
Yeah. I love giving the illusion of being a whale. But it's really interesting. That's a really interesting kind of discussion point where, like, what really defines a whale? I'm pretty sure everyone, like, in the community has a very different kind of definition on whale.
And I'm Snip says, so yeah, an entire year's plan of saving and putting aside funds for this event and getting hurt by the gotcha, like, going way higher than you wanted. So yeah, it was similar to me where I had saved, all that time. And he says Niku Niku Connect. I did all on cans. That's the most recent Hello Happy World band story for anyone who doesn't know. And so he used all cans on Niku Niku Connect, where he did top 10, and then almost a third of BuddyxBuddy, he used cans for that. So obviously that is not spending money because the cans are there. But you did spend money to get the cans at some point. So
it's investing your stars and money into the future. So
yeah, exactly.
I like that mindset. A lot of people, like, when they like do it on impulse, like just so that they could, like, you know, get more funds and stuff for gacha or for whaling. It's like, yeah, I could see, you know, I could see that's a little bit more, perhaps more closely classified as a whale, but, like, you know, you could hide that fact, be like, you know, this is investing into the future. So
yeah, exactly.
yeah, so that's really cool. Snips. You know, one thing I do want to ask a little bit, and very briefly from you, we've already talked about Kimi ga Nakucha, which is the Band Story 2 Hello Happy World event, where Feathers has gotten T1. And again, Feathers, you've mentioned it in quite a bit of detail in our previous podcast. But Snips, I want to get a little bit, like, a very brief kind of perspective on your end, because from what I remember from that story, the two of you were wanting to actually do like a friendly competition to see who was going to get T1 in that event. And you guys were like, even though it was like competing for T1, you know, you two were like rooming together and helping each other in a sense. So what kind of, I guess, you know, gave you the, like, I guess the impression that, oh, like, I'll let Feathers take this title, and, like, you know, your experience in that event, right? So, like, how was that overall? And again, Feathers, you've already mentioned a good part of that story, but I just want to, you know, briefly hear from Snips's perspective, because that would be a very interesting perspective to hear.
Yeah, while Snips is typing, I'll just give a quick, like, info dump, I guess, to anyone who's newer in the community. But for anyone who doesn't know, Band Story 2 for Hello Happy World, Snips and I both competed in the same server with the same players with each other for first. So we were, like, I don't know, maybe it would seem a little bit weirder nowadays with how tiering server culture has evolved, but we were both two T1s playing in the same server together with no predetermined outcome. It was just whatever happened was going to happen.
Yeah. To be honest, like, if, let's say, and again, for those who really want to see me do like a whale T1 or whatever, right? Like, again, I don't have any plans to do anything higher than T10 right now. But, like, to be honest, if, let's say, there was an event where I would do like a T1, I honestly would entertain the idea of having like a friendly competitive T1 within the same server, like someone who's willing to, like, do that with me. So, like, you can, you know, kind of like push each other, right? And then, like, you know, give each other support rather than, like, stressing on the fact of competing. So So that's what I would personally do. But it's pretty interesting to hear. So yeah, we'll see what Snips has to say here.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be. Oh, there we go. He's done. So Snip says, it's not so much as taking/giving Feathers the title as much as achieving what I wanted the most from the Kimiga event itself. After Hello My Happy World, we jokingly made a super small friend group server, which was actually called Filthy Casuals. Yeah, so I'll just branch off from Snips' typing here for a second. If you ever see us tiering and we have the little subtext FC in our names, yeah, that means Filthy Casuals. Some people think it means full combo, but that's just our very ancient tiering clan title, I guess. So continuing what he said, so he says, and this ties back to how we met, how we went into Hello My Happy World, with saving and planning to tier what we wanted through that. But more importantly, it was the friendship and the experience, and Snips is still typing there. But yeah, the filthy Casuals thing was like, hey, we're not true whales, but we are saving and working hard because we believe we can do it, you know? And he goes on and says, and I just honestly wanted to tier high with people I cared about the most that made me love this game and band more. So yeah, I can definitely say that I felt the same, where for that event, the most important thing to me was playing with friends and enjoying Hello Happy World and enjoying the story. So there was a lot less pressure going into that one than there was when we first tiered together, for sure.
Yeah. And it's just really cool to see how, like, again, the two of you work together with a bunch of the friends that you've kind of grown to make throughout the past few months and years of tiering together, right, with a bunch of other people. So it's really cool to see how y'all kind of came together, worked together, and yeah, everyone was able to achieve the goals that you were able to get. And Snips, it's really cool to see your dedication to Hello Happy. Being able to get that second place in Bandori 2. So that's really, really cool to hear that perspective. I really, really quite like that.
All right, there we go. He says, Snip says, speaking of playing together, I'm kind of reminded about something about servers and Hello My Happy World. I nowadays hear about how in competition you don't want to give them the upper hand and all. But I'm reminded that back in the super old days, imagine playing with the very people you want to be in the same room. It's just a random thought. So like it's just the culture has changed so much since then, and it's still even now. I feel like it's different. Like I feel like every year it changes.
Yeah, definitely. It's always ever changing. Like there's just different people coming in, different people, quote unquote retiring.
Some Snips people and I are both retired, quote unquote.
Quote unquote, right? So it's really interesting how things like evolve and change, and I think I even saw a little bit of that as well. Like this is not part of the question. I talked about. I'll ask later, but I saw a little bit of that in the Hello Happy World summer vacation where event where I think Snips, you were kind of involved with playing with your quote unquote competition, having like two different server names, but turns out you were all like kind of working together and playing at the same time. So
I will point this out. Snips says, I am retired, please. Snips, I know that you're in top 10s in like rosters and other events that haven't happened yet. You're like retired from podium, maybe. Don't feathers please me. I know I am too. I know that I also I'm same boat.
I saw funny I saw funny too from Lemo, and Lemo's like, after getting her T1 recently, she's like, I'm officially retired. And then like you see like a few literally minutes later, it's like, oh yeah, this is like the T10. It's like, Lemo, aren't you retired? And it's like, no, I'm T1 retired. Doesn't mean I'm retired from any other title. It's like, okay.
Yeah, like I don't know. Yeah, Sniff says, yeah, retirement for me is no T1 plans. Anything below is fair game. And I kind of feel like that too, and I would say that, but like, the Hello Happy Halloween event is coming up.
Yeah.
And
that's playing by yourself. All seeing how well you play by yourself. It's going to be really interesting to see. I'm really looking forward to that event, just seeing how that unfolds.
Yeah, it'll be like me and Snips in a DM, and I'll be talking, and he's just going to be typing in the chat, and it's going to be that for like 8 days. Like that's going to be it.
Yeah. But it's really interesting. Like a lot of people talk about like retirement, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm T1 retired. But like I know a lot of people, and I've talked with many like veteran tiers before as well, right? T1 may, depending on how you prepare for it, a T1 may even be like easier than like a T10, right? So like if you retire like for doing T1s, but in theory, if a T1 is easier, so like, are you actually challenging yourself to play more? It's like a weird like sentiment of like, oh yeah, I'm retired, but like maybe this one T10 is going to be like the biggest nightmare of my entire life. But you're technically retired, so
so I'll speak for Snips here.
Yeah,
I know a little bit about how he plans his events, but the way that he does it is that he sets a goal for himself.
Yeah,
and he will just play until he hits the goal. And if that happens to be a T1, then it's a T1. And if it's a T10, it's a T10. So, he picks a number that he wants to end at, and he just goes. And I think that that's the best way to tier, honestly.
100%.
Like, just go until you can't go anymore. just play more,
Yeah. That's kind of how I approach tiering as well. Like a lot of people, like if you've seen my like tiering like achievements, they're all like really really high T100s, and people are like, oh, why are you like wasting so much resources just to get the same title as someone else who's like in T100? It's like, well, I want to just go for a number, like this particular number, this park I want, and I'm just gonna do whatever it takes to get there, and whatever rank I get, there you go. So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to do it.
I like that. I like that tier. Snips, you have a good mind.
Yeah, he says it really also helps when you don't focus on other players, because it won't really matter if you're invested in what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're happy with what you end with. And yeah, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how we approached Niku Niku Connect, where I was like, just don't even look at Lisa Bot. Just play, Just don't even look. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. You can't control what the others play. You can't disconnect their internet.
Exactly.
You can't like suspend their account, right? You just have to keep playing.
You just play until you can't play anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think it hurts your mental state more to be worrying about what other people are doing, and to be constantly talking about it or checking Lisa Bot and stuff. Like, try to have some confidence in yourself and just go,
Exactly. So yeah, very good advice for our players in our retirement home.
Oh, he says, Snip says, yeah, I have Lisa Bot and more always muted whenever I'm in servers, but not because I don't check it sometimes, but because the notifications are annoying. But also knowing your goals is more important.
Definitely.
So, yeah, I mean, I should probably do that. I should just mute Lisa Bot.
And despite the fact that Lisa Bot is such a really useful tool, again, it could backfire and cause a lot of anxiety in a different way. So
use Lisa Bot as like a useful tool.
Yeah.
Don't use it as like a panic device.
Yeah.
Where you look at it and then you panic.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep a straight head and do some math. Always do your math. Do the math. I can't say that enough.
Yeah, for sure. Hey everyone, it's Phil here. Hope you're enjoying the episode so far. As a reminder, the RePHIL Studio is available on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. And feel free to subscribe to your favorite platform so that you're up to date with all of the weekly episodes. And if you really enjoy it, feel free to leave a comment and give a high rating on any of the platforms you use. All that support is greatly appreciated. If you really want to support my content and the RePHIL Studio, consider joining the Filler Nation by either subscribing to my Twitch channel or by joining the Patreon. Links in the description below. Any support is greatly appreciated. And again, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to all the Filler Nation members who've been constantly supporting me, and you'll be featured in this video every time. So definitely check it out if you are interested. And for our Filler Nation members, again, I greatly appreciate your support. We have a channel, the RePHIL Academy VODs channel, where there'll be VODs of my streams as well as possible other side projects on the side. So check out the card above if you'd like to subscribe and check out other content that I may be doing in the future. And of course, feel free to join the Unga Academy Discord server, links in the description below, so that you could be up to date with the live recordings of the RePHIL Studio podcast, as well as contribute to the studio question that happens in every episode. So check it out, and thank you all so much for the support. The RePHIL Studio episode will resume shortly. This one quick question I do want to ask, and this is the question I'm always really curious about, is that did you ever want to wear a sort of reputation of being a quote unquote sniper? Because again, a lot of the times we've been talking about are events that you prepared for well in advance. But my initial impression when I got into the community was this. Oh, Devotedly Towards My Dream. That was a pretty cool event. This is one of my first few tiering events. And I see the Snips person, and suddenly halfway through the event, went zooming and sniped the spot, a T10 spot. I'm like, okay, this Snips guy's pretty good. And then
I'll cover this.
And then literally the next a couple events later, I see, what was it? It was the Xmas of Hello Happy World Xmas, and I'm just like, wow, What's going on here? This person has done it again.
Oh no! All right, I can feel this one, Snips. So here's how it works. Snips will do anything for Misaki. Snips will do anything for Remy, and Snips will do anything for his friends. That's it. That's all you need to know. That's it's it's exactly what I said before. Once he decides to do it, he picks a number goal and he goes till he gets it. And if it's first place, it's first place.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of those instances have been, he's tiered for his friends before, for friends who couldn't tier. He's tiered for his best girl before, obviously. It's all about the situation at the time surrounding the event. Who's playing right now? Does he want to help them out? What does it lead to?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's any more complicated than that, really. But Snips is not out here like a silent killer. Like, I'm coming for you. Snips said, Hello Happy World Summer. He did T1 for a friend who couldn't. So
that's fair.
He tiered for someone else. And I think that's pretty admirable.
I definitely think so too, right? Like, again, when I see like someone like you, Snips, who's just such a strong tier, and like you're all, like when I see you like on the leaderboards, I'm just like, wow, like how did that happen? Like I like the worst thing you want to be is be on the wrong side tiering against Snips. Like that's what I've learned. I'm just like, you know what? I'd rather be on Snips' side rather than on the other side.
Yeah, I've said that before. I think if Snips and I were to ever want to seriously compete for a title, like there's one that we both really just love and we just cannot get along about who should be T1 or not, or who should be aiming for it. I shouldn't say who should be, no one claims it before it happens. But if Snips was like, I'm going to do this, I'd pick a different event. Like I would just do something else. Like I would help Snips and then Snips would help me. And it was, I would just be like, okay, you can have this one. Like I don't want to do that.
I think it's like literally like I think again that's just like the reputation you have worn just based on your history. It's not necessarily like the fact that we're giving you too much credit. It's like literally just based on the raw experience that you've shown and demonstrated. It's just like, people are like, okay, we're done. BuddyxBuddy, you wanted to tier that? I heard that Snips is tiering that. You still want to go for it? Oh, okay, no, I thought so. No, we're not going for T1. Yeah, okay.
Well, here's like a funny thing actually about because we talked about that during Nico Connect, where we were like, oh, here's these hypothetical scenarios where we have to play against each other and against Pasta and whatever, and it was like, well, Snips can play forever. But he doesn't always have like the whale team because I'm more focused on collecting the cards than I am on tiering as frequently as Snips does.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were playing Nico Connect, I was the only one who had the optimal team in that event. Mm-hmm. And so, but during the time that we were playing, my Wi-Fi was blinking like every 30 minutes. So every 30 minutes, I was losing an entire song's worth of points. And my cards were still so whale that I was slowly catching up to each of the people I was playing with in front of me and passing them. So even though I could not play as long, and even though I was getting less songs in per hour, my team was strong enough that I was still catching up anyway. So I think that it's really very situational. Like, just because you can't guerrilla mode as well as someone else, maybe your team really will give you that edge if you can keep up the efficiency.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny because we haven't talked about Nico Connect because when we did your podcast, that event hasn't happened yet. So that's a nice insight to hear. I'm kind of surprised that Wi-Fi, the Canadian Wi-Fi, is not very good.
It usually is. I don't know what happened then. Snips also says I'm notoriously easy to distract, and that is true. We were watching The Bachelorette. It was very easy to get lost while we were playing.
Oh no! I remember that because Pasta was a guest before. She also mentioned that it's like Bachelorette was like the savior of Nico Connect.
It's live.
Oh, yep. That's die watching movies and shows.
Yeah, just tell Snips to watch Cats or something.
All right, for those who want to again, there's not really much of a way to challenge Snips anymore because Snips is no longer T1ing anymore. Snips retired, so. But it's also really cool because Snips, I think I don't know if this is wrong or right, but I think you have like one of almost every T10 title. Like you have a T1, T2, T3. I think you have like one of everything except like maybe a few, and maybe you're still working on that. But yeah, that might be something that I don't know if that's like part of your retirement plan to get at least like one of every title from 1 to 10 before you like fully retire.
Regarding the Niku Niku Neck distractions thing, he says he'll also just die because he's not paying attention, and his phone has died during events before because he didn't notice the battery was dead. So like even the greats have a weakness, and it's the battery like life of your phone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Battery of your phone, you're just how good your device is. That's a bottleneck for sure.
Yeah, Snip says he's a thumbs player.
Ooh.
So I'm a thumbs. He's a thumbs player. I'm a 4-finger player. So I play on an
iPad supremacy.
Yeah.
I can't imagine playing on thumbs for such a long period of time. Like, I guess the good thing about playing on thumbs, you could actually like walk around and such while you're tearing. But like, the worst thing you could do is like you lie on your bed while tearing. Oh,
I did that. I did that for like my first 3 events. I played them in my bed with my iPad.
You could like accidentally just fall asleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the Android issues. No.
Yeah, Snips is mentioning the Android issues. For anyone who doesn't know, there have been ongoing issues with newer Android updates that make the game unplayable, essentially. So, yeah, we've been worried about that. He says during Doremi he did T2, but that it was really, really stressful because of that.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, it was like Doremi, like you literally would not know when that would come out until it literally came out. So, and then I now like learning a little bit more about you, Snips, like being like the pre-planner that you are, right? It's difficult if it's something like suddenly happens spontaneously. So, I understand that it's tough. Ian Dori has their issues. So, yeah, but
he says,
man,
because of scheduling, Snips had to put in paid time off 3 times, and even then, he ended up working. And yeah, it's stressful when you have to go to school or go to work. Even worse than usual.
It's a fine balance of trying to balance the work, balance school, because obviously in life, whatever you need to do in real life is more important than playing A to Z on your phone, so on your tablet. So
Sniff says even though he spent the entire time during that event playing catch up from behind, he wasn't as worried about that as he was worried about the system itself with the game, with the Android issues. So that was a factor for quite a few events, I think.
Yeah, it definitely is. So yeah, let's hope, fingers crossed, Ian Dori could fix. I mean, they'll have a more smoother year ahead. So you couldn't get in sometimes.
Yeah, so sometimes the game would not like function correctly, and it end up you get kicked out mid song, and then you get feature banned for a specific amount of time. And I was feature banned quite a few times during Niku Niku Neck myself, and that was because of my Wi-Fi. So
yeah,
it gets worse each time you do it. And with the Android just dictating that for you, it was just like RNG.
Unfortunate, but yeah. Well, again, regardless, you were able to get your goal, Snips, which is really admirable nonetheless. There's anything else you want to add? Definitely do that.
Yeah, he says, Snip says, I do plan on trying to get every T1 to T10 rank. He's writing a little bit more.
But
I don't have plans for that myself. He says, I wanted a spot for every band at a specific number below podium/T4.
Okay. Okay, so that's interesting. So that's going to be an interesting sort of, I guess, mission. I don't, because I it might have started with Devotedly Towards My Dreams, maybe, because like that was like pure pasta. Yeah, yep. That was right. Pasta palettes. And it's like, oh, you got a T10. It's like, oh, well, that could be a very interesting goal to
it's
get.
like, wow,
so.
what's Snips doing here? He doesn't go here. Like,
yeah. For first impression, I'm like, wow, Snips is a pretty big pasta palettes fan.
Yeah, I'm sure that's Snips' favorite band. Oh yeah, all right. So he says he didn't plan on those plans, but after getting close to BuddyxBuddy, I realized I'm going to miss Tearing High, and I wish I did something for the other bands originally. He says I love all of them, but not as much as Hello Happy World.
That's what a real Bang Dream fan is. You like all of them, right? You like all the bands. You have a particular favorite, but you don't hate on anyone. If you hate on anyone, that's not good.
Yeah, so he says using DTMD as the starting point reference, that's why he had 9 marked off and had to aim for every other spot now. So he's got plans. Who knows what the plans are?
Yeah, who knows?
Do you even know what your plans are? Are you just going to show up one day?
I think, based on, again, how we're seeing, I don't think we're going to reveal them unless you want to reveal them for whatever reason. Hopefully your future plans goes well. I don't know if you might accidentally get a T1, but again, so we'll see how things go. Only missing 6, 7, and 10.
You're almost there.
Only one kind of event, huh?
Oh, yeah, same as me, basically.
Okay, well, we'll await and see that when that time comes. I think that might lead to like my final question of the podcast. But before we do, before we reach the final question, Snips, I want to briefly, we're already like hitting near the time, but briefly talk about BuddyxBuddy, because we didn't talk about this yet. This is your other T1. I'm sure you have a lot of very memorable parts about it. Anything you want to talk about BuddyxBuddy? Because I know, like, again, you were technically in competition with another server. There was another server also competing, but I don't think any of them were going for T1. So, how was that experience like, tiering BuddyxBuddy? And getting that T1? Because I'm sure, again, you did it for Misaki, obviously. Being one of the main 4 stars with Himari, but what was that experience like, right?
Yeah, we'll give Snip some time to type. I was supposed to tier that one and then I just didn't. So, yeah, you never know.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it happens a lot very recently. Like, quite often, if someone's like tiering it, and they're like, "Oh, I want to tier," and then a lot of people would like want to like save and be like, "Oh, I'm tiering this like a year in advance." And then when the time comes, like, life happens, right? And then you sometimes
especially recently with like the scheduling issues, it became so hard to predict when things would be, and people had school when they didn't have school before, and you got work, you can't take time off, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So you just have to be a little bit mindful of that, but yeah.
Snip says it was interesting ? And yeah, BuddyxBuddy's card became my absolute favorite Misaki one, so I really wanted to tier the event. And also the title is my first understanding of why people tier 4 titles. That's the title that has Michelle and Marie, I think, in the title itself, the little emojis of their characters.
Yeah.
So
the Japanese... Sorry, the Japanese title of BuddyxBuddy was really good, and we some people criticize Bandori for like messing up the titles from their Japanese counterparts, but like it's hard to mess up BuddyxBuddy when the title is literally in English. So
I personally don't care that much. Like, I'm not tiering for the look of the title.
Yeah, but, me neither. But
just put the girl I like in the thing, and I'll do the But yeah, this one was pretty cute. because I think that Snips' reasoning was something like, now technically Misaki is actually physically in the title, so
yeah.
That would be the draw there.
It was a cute story too. I really liked the story, the event story. I don't know if Snips read it, but or I'm sure he did. But
I'm sure that he did.
I'm sure he did. It was a very cute story. Yeah.
Yeah, so he says, to clarify, Buddy Buddy was something I genuinely was worried about, more because I just don't play with a lot of people unless with friends, and about 80% of the time I pubbed it.
I think I noticed that you were like, again,
yes.
I was in the other server, and I think you were like, you were pubbing a lot.
Yeah, so the way that we've been doing events lately, me and Snips and our friends, is that we don't have like a tiering server necessarily.
Yeah.
We have a small group chat, I would say, like a glorified group chat.
Yeah.
Like 5 to 10 people, and that's who we tier with the entire event. So, some instances you only have 2 or 3 people playing in the room with you, and it's all about efficiency at that point. So sometimes when your server is very small and people are busy, or the event is slow, you're in pubcord, or you're just doing what you can. He says, I played more hours in it than, let's say, Nikuni Connect or some other events, but had less ending EP I could have gotten because the way rooms were just so scarce. So he played more that event, but had less EP in the end because it was just how the room situation.
Oh, that's rough. That's rough. I especially like, I guess someone like who has planned stuff in advance, and you want to like be like, okay, this is how much I have, and this is what I should get, and you don't get it. It's like it's pretty frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you get to your goal, it doesn't necessarily matter how you get there in the end. Yeah. If you got to play your whole event with 2 people in your room, if you're outpacing someone, you're outpacing them. And as we always say when we're playing with our friends, EP is EP.
Yeah.
If you're getting points, you're getting the points.
Exactly. So. Exactly. Well, it's good that you were able to...
So Snip says his EP goal was 420, 69, 666.
So imagine being like, this is my best girl Misaki, I'm gonna do everything to do the tier for her, and then you get 420, 69, 666.
Yeah, I mean, really in the spirit of Hello Happy World, honestly, Yeah, so he says that a few days or so before it, he had some personal issues come up and decided he would just settle for where he could end up, which is also a totally fair way to tier.
Definitely.
You don't have to go into it, knowing, oh, I want this place for sure. You can just play for the sake of playing.
I think, again, for a lot of people, like it's hard to sort of, I guess, be, because a lot of people when they want to tier, right, they want to have something to show for it, and a title definitely shows it. And some people get really fixated by that one number on the title. And for on the first impression, right? If you see someone with a T1 or someone with a T2, you maybe the first impression is, oh yeah, the T1 person is better. But like, I think for people that know the context of the tiering, like the fact that the amount of effort or thought you put into it, and the amount of like passion you showed during that tiering is definitely like the more noticeable, the more memorable experience. So
what Snip said here kind of ties into that. He says it's a joke number, like that goal that he mentioned, but he says he thinks it symbolized his journey for T1 and how much of a wild ride it's been and full of fun it was, and he wanted to end on something to encapsulate how funny and surreal it is too. That's why he wanted to go for it. But if anything, he'll use it for another tier or something. Yeah. So that's a pretty good point. Like for some of us, tiering is just a weird place.
Yeah.
Everything is all connected. Everyone knows everyone. It's a weird world out here.
Yeah. And of course, it continues to grow with more people coming in, learning a little bit more about what tiering is like. So it's going to be really cool to see people, more people coming in. Maybe we'll see some new people coming in and making a nice mark for themselves, right? Being a future strong tier. Maybe taking away the reputation of Sniper Snips. We'll see how that goes, but yeah. So again, since I don't know, again, if you want to add anything else, you could certainly do so. Yeah,
Feel
sure,
free
sure,
to.
sure.
Yeah. He
Sniper
says,
thing? Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so he wants to add something about the sniper comments.
Definitely clarify anything that you would like to, I guess, maybe, um, have people clarify about, that. So,
All right. So he says it's not just about him, but more on the strange mindset people have in the community. This will probably be a pretty good take, knowing Snips.
yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. We had a discussion about like, I had a discussion about like this quote unquote word of snipers in a previous podcast with the guests before, and he brought some really interesting points about it as well. So um, I think that's something that could certainly merit some pretty cool discussion too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what Snips is typing, but I feel like we're gonna have the same opinion because we have the same brain about everything.
Yeah, I could probably imagine that. Like, I can imagine. I think it's gonna be a really interesting, point, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I think if I were to guess, okay, and I could be completely wrong. So if I'm wrong, then Snips is obviously going to clarify. But like I think there's like a really like a negative connotation when it comes to sniping, right? Where like if you're sniping, that's like really negative, right, about it. But it's not. It's not necessarily right. Like I think like it gains like a bad reputation, but like I think in truth, like it is a very like it's something that's really, really commemorable, regardless, because again, you work just as hard as everyone else, or perhaps even harder.
Yeah.
That's like again, it's not something that I guess you want to add like a negativity to it, right? It's not necessarily like a negative thing to do, but yeah, but it is it's a perspective that I think that people maybe have maybe a little bit skewed, especially for those who maybe don't see that other perspective. So
yeah, I'll put in my 2 cents before I read Snips's thing there. But my opinion on it is that sniping is a good shorthand for someone that you see like homing in on you from outside your server. Like that's the perspective that you have. But are they really a sniper, or is it just someone else who's also tearing? Like, why does it have to be the word sniper? Like, unless that person specifically wants to be like, oh, I'm sniping this event. Like, I'm going to be known for doing this terrible misdeed. I want to be the bad guy. Like, unless they're really playing up that character, it's just someone else who also is tearing from a different place than you are. And Snip says, I understand the joking way you can talk about sniping. But when people who show up to compete against the main server, you negatively get folks saying they're sniping, when this game is all about competition, which kind of ties in with how he doesn't like people seemingly to claim titles either. So
yeah,
it's just like I see what he's saying there, like that it's a weird stance to take because the entire point of the game is that you are competing against other people.
Yeah.
That's like the purpose of competition. So, is it really someone who's coming in to snipe the spot that you've claimed, or is it just someone else who has the same goal as you?
And so happened to do it better than you, right? So
yeah, if you lost out, then they played more than you. If you didn't lose, then you played more than them, and that's really all it is in the end. I think that like putting everyone on like that kind of even playing ground in your head mentally will also really help with tiering. To not see other people as the enemy, but to see them as like goals and stuff, things that you have to overcome.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, but again, that's a really good point, Snips, and again, that could be something that people could also look into and consider. Right, we had some really, really cool discussion points about very like terms that we use very often in the community, but like when you kind of sit back and think about it a bit more, you can think, oh well, there's a little bit more to just that, right? We talked about the whales, we talked about the snipes, we talked about retirement. There's a lot more to it than that, and I think it just bounds a lot more discussion than what we might first think. So yeah, but thank you for sharing that, Snips. It's really again, your perspectives, especially for like a much different perspective from maybe the general people in the community. So I really appreciate that. It's really cool that we had this discussion. But before we end off, because I know we're just about ending off this podcast, and we're just gonna go into a little bit more about something you talked about before, like one possible event that may like cause you to unretire. And I could be completely wrong, but this may be related to our studio question. So at the end of every week in our podcast, we ask a studio question to our server members in the Discord to contribute and contribute to another discussion. And the question I asked for our server members this week is, what do they look forward to in terms of Band Story 4s in the future, right? So like Band Story 2s in particular were like a very like heart-wrenching stories where like the bands were just about to break up and then they had to like overcome that. And then Band Story 3 is a little bit more like a hopeful kind of story. So what would they like to see in a Band Story 4 moving forward? And I'm going to ask you that to the both of you as well, Snips and Feathers, and I'll also be sharing some of the answers in the video as well from our Discord server members and see what they look forward to for upcoming Band Story 4s, because, you know, that could happen in the future. We don't know, so.
Oh, yeah. All right, me and Snips have the same exact opinion. So Snips says, "Oh, man. I'm a very simple person, Phil. I love reading about what Hello Happy World stories can be and will be. But that's not why I'd unretire. I'd only unretire for my ship." Which is exactly what I was going to guess. So Snips is a big Misa Rimi fan. So Fangirls of the Dead was a very fun time. And I, of course, am a big Misa Coco fan. So I'm sure that if the stars aligned and we each got our dream events, we would, of course, unretire for those. And in terms of Band Story 4, what I would hope for, in simple terms, more Misa Coco, because there can never be too much.
Yeah.
But in more complex, to expand on that, I guess, I would like to have an event that's more focused around Kokoro's backstory.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know more about how she grew up and more about her family and why she is the way she is.
That's so true.
Yeah, so I'd like something that is more focused on Kokoro, because she's been in all her band stories, of course, because she's the vocalist. But yeah, I want like a little bit more from that. Just like how I think Hagumi probably needs any backstory at all beyond what she was given. Yeah, this one's for Pasta. Give us Hagumi in Band Story 4, please. I can wait longer for my band story with the Kokoro backstory. I can wait for that, but give Hagumi something. Yeah, and then give Snips a Misa Rimi again, please.
Yes, Misa Rimi round 2. Like, we have our dream events, right? The Misa Rimi event for Snips. Maybe Band Story 4 focuses on Hagumi. I feel like, you know, maybe like a full Hello Happy World event could happen where like it's focused on young Kokoro. Maybe not necessarily as a Band Story 4, but just like as a regular event, and young Kokoro could be a thing.
Yeah, give me like baby Kokoro. Like Afterglow got babies.
Yeah.
Give me like the little child Kokoro.
I feel like that could happen. That could happen. Maybe we should ask Lucia Hunter to pitch that idea to Bushiroad.
I don't know how lucky we'll get with that, but
that's a lot.
I've predicted things before, so you know, we'll see.
Yeah. So again, if you're watching listening to this podcast, if you want to contribute to that question, let us know in the comments below on what kind of band story for topics or themes you'd like to see in the future. This is going to conclude our episode today, and Snips, a great pleasure to have you on the podcast. And Feathers, thank you so much for being able to contribute to your ideas as well as be the voice for Snips as well. It was a great pleasure having both of you on the podcast today.
Yeah, anytime.
Yeah. And Snips, if you have anything else you'd like to add, or anything like any last minute shout outs or thank yous that you want to say to anyone out there listening, feel free to do so.
Well, he says, thank you for having us, Phil, and thank you, Feathers, for giving me a voice, literally. You're welcome. Anytime, Snips, of course.
It's definitely not the first time.
Yeah. I'm sure that some folks thought this was going to be a voice reveal. Sorry to disappoint.
Yeah.
Snips remains a creature of mystery.
Yeah.
Like, silently lurking in the shadows.
For sure. While Snips is writing to thank you, I'm sure maybe you want to shout out once more to Northwest Idol Fan Fest that's happening.
Oh yeah, so I'm working with my friends down in Seattle. We actually just partnered with, well, we absorbed IdolCon. So if you know
Mhm.
IdolCon, they had a bunch of Bandori guests virtually, and we've now absorbed them. And so Northwest Idol Fest is an idol focused and idol adjacent based convention down in Seattle. We're gonna have concerts and guests and I don't know, a lot of cool stuff. So go check us out. Northwest Idol Fest on Twitter. And yeah, come say hi to Lucia and bother him in real life.
I hope to be there too, as well. I think they also have a Rin Taicho as well,
Yeah,
going as
Rin's coming
well.
back. Yeah, Rin's
Also
coming back for
a
sure.
guest of this podcast before, so.
Snip says the thank you list would be exhaustive, so I'm just happy to tell all my friends thank you for always being there for me and indulging me in my BSery. Me too. Same hat, honestly.
Tearing sometimes gets it gets very passionate, and there's a lot of like heated moments, so there's always going to be times where maybe we have to make sure we have people to support us and make sure we do what we can to make sure we get to our goals. So yeah, it's very good to see. And again, Snips, I think the main thing, as we talked about, it's the friends that kind of push you and build you. So I'm very, very happy to hear that, and also very glad to finally get to know you a little bit more after all this time, because I was always very curious from again, your initial first impression that I had. So
yeah,
but
one day
yeah.
you can watch The Bachelorette with us and discover.
Not The Bachelorette. All right. So, thank you all so much for listening to this podcast. Again, a reminder, you could find us on your favorite podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Of course, if you could feel free to join our Discord server to interact with all of our special guests in the community, as well as you could find the individual Twitter accounts and be able to follow our guests as well in the description below. And with that out of the way, thank you all so much for listening. This is your host, SB Philosopher, signing out. Get your cans ready. We'll be refilling to 99 on our next set. But until then, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you all next time. Take care, and bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.